The Monday, September 19th, 2022 City of Vandalia Council meeting is now called to order. We'll start with a moment of reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's sit down before you're done. Jeez, Louise.
And as our city manager just alluded to here a few moments ago, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to hear any emergency ordinances first. On
Make a
tonight's
motion.
agenda. Need a second?
Second.
A motion by Councilman Ehlers and a second by Councilwoman Farce to amend the agenda to hear emergency ordinances first. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. We have no minutes to approve, and that brings us to communications, petitions, and awards. Mr. Wendt.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. We have a boards and commissions appointment tonight that is for the Vandalia Arts Council. And so I would just like to introduce to you Miss Rebecca Roderer. She's an applicant for the Vandalia Arts Council Board, and her application is in her packet. And so thank you for being here tonight, ma'am.
Thank you for having me. So my name is Rebecca Roderer, or as my students call me, Miss Beck. I'm an artist and an art teacher. I currently teach kindergarten through 6th grade. I also facilitate senior art nights at local nursing homes, and I'm, excuse me, the Vandalia Parks and Recreation's Arts and Crafts programmer. Recently, I just started that position. I am very much committed to building an impactful arts community, especially here in Vandalia. I was born and raised in Vandalia, and I graduated as the Outstanding Senior in Art in 2014. I just moved home to Dayton this summer. I no longer live, unfortunately, in this city, but I'm very, very, very much committed to this town. Let's see, I earned too many degrees. I have a studio art degree, bachelor's degree, art history, and 2 masters in arts. I'm incredibly passionate about this program, but I also believe it's very important for all people to understand the current culture of art in their communities and for those community members to support the creativeness of their community. I think I'd be a very valuable member for the Vandalia Arts Council. Not only do I have the artistic skills and knowledge, the unwavering passion for which I've already stated, a strong commitment to service, but I'm also very ambitious. I never want to stop learning, growing, or creating. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Hope you have a good evening.
Well, thank you, Ms. Roderer.
Thank you.
You had me on your application, and I'll quote, "I have an unwavering passion for the arts of
Yeah.
education and commitment to service." I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. I
Thank
appreciate
you,
that.
sir.
Thank you, and Ms. Roderer has been attending our meetings and participating even before she was a member, so that's been very good to have, and good to have you on board. Thank you.
Thank you, Candace, or Miss Farst.
Your Honor, just as a point of clarification, in this portion of the agenda, we do the meet and greet with the Arts Council Board applicants. Mr. Royce was unable to attend today because of traveling, I believe, for business. But later on in action items, we'll ask for a motion to approve and appoint Ms. Roderer and also Mr. Royce if it's agreeable to council.
All right, thank you. We have no public hearing, and that brings us to comments from interested citizens. So if anyone would like to make a comment, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and your comment. Good evening.
Evening. Tom Grice. This is great. 10400 North Cassel Road. There are 3 topics I'd like to address tonight. The first one is the firefighters. This is a personal opinion. I believe I would support the movement to full-time firefighters. I've seen firsthand the need to hire industrial hygienists, train them to be certified, and then watch that certification give them employment opportunities that far exceed what is within the existing salary structure. And I've seen industrial hygienists been hired, trained, leave, replacement, hired, trained, leave, replacement, hired, trained, leave. I believe if you were to take a close look at it, I'm going to guess when you're hiring part-time staff, you're probably training them to be qualified to leave. And I think if you go to full-time staff, you'll largely avoid that. So I would encourage you to strongly consider that. The second topic is the utility rates. As you've noted, there's clear concern among the citizens over the size of the initial increase. I encourage you to consider your options as to what you can do with that. I understand the concept of the compounding interest or the lack of compounding interest as you try and make up that deficit. It may require you to go a series of higher steps than the 2%, clearly over the next 5 years. But I think if you did something along the lines of 20 and a series of 10%, or 25% followed by a series of 10% to get you up there to where you need to be, that would certainly be easier for residents to plan ahead for. They're going to have a hard time absorbing that initial one, maybe this year if they're on a fixed income, but it gives them a year to plan for the next series of increases and an additional year after that. It also gives them a year potentially of increased wages. The salaries and hourly wages tend to increase. So it allows for that. So I would encourage you to consider what your options are. I don't know how quickly the bills due. I don't know how fast you have to how fast you need to raise that money.
In its current state, if it's approved tonight, the bill would go into effect January.
Oh, that I understand. What I don't understand, what I don't comprehend yet is at what point do you have to have all the money that you're going to need to keep from going?
Okay.
You know, is it at 5 years? Is it out to 7 years? 5 is what I've kind of been projected. But I don't know if that's a hard 5 years or 5 years is a good rule of thumb, and that's what we're planning for. So I don't know, but and I don't know how your monies are allocated. I'm not sure what pockets of money you've got that could be potentially shuffled, at least on a temporary basis, if the city has the ability to loan itself money from one pot to another. I don't know if that's an option.
Didn't you make the comment, Mr. Wendt, that it's unprecedented to move money from the general fund to a utility? That we can't do that, is that correct?
It would be terrible and destructive fiscal policy. Yeah, I would strongly advise never, ever doing that. Generally, what you would do is you would do some sort of OWDA loan, a low-interest loan, issue bonds, issue notes, have a small interest rate. You wouldn't act as your own lender, just for the simple use of the operationalizing your money and your funds a little bit better. Also, we're just not that fat anywhere.
Right.
So,
And I know you were here during the study session, but many of the others weren't, where we discussed this extensively. I think everyone here on council has an opinion here where we all understand what needs to take place, but how we get there, that's the concern. And as I mentioned earlier, my main concern is the residents that are on fixed incomes. This is going to be a dramatic impact on their budget. So we want to look at what we can possibly do to ease that on them. So I think what council would like to do is maybe study this a little bit more.
And again, what I'm encouraging you to do is to do that study, is to take a little more time and figure out what your options actually are. The other thing is that council has directed the manager's office to do outreach. I would suggest a postcard isn't sufficient. You just don't read enough information on that postcard. I'm also aware that the council monitors or participates in social media, and there has been ample discussion both on the All Things Vandalia website as well as the Warehouse Opposition website concerning questions about this. I would encourage you to review those websites and try and answer people's questions that have been posed, because for whatever reason, they choose not to ask council. They choose not to ask the city directly. But there are questions that are out there that should be raised. If you wish, I will make a list of those and provide them to you, but I would encourage you to do that on your own.
And I do get a lot of emails from people that do post on there. They won't necessarily interact in that type of a forum, but I will get emails asking more general questions and at least giving their opinions. So
Right,
we
and
do
clearly-
respond to everybody that contacts us.
Right, and clearly, I am not aware of those types of communications, but consider what you're answering in the mail needs to answer the questions in people's minds and their hearts. The last topic is the warehouse. I don't know if council has started considering your options to address the residents' concerns about preventing future developments involving large warehouses. It's clearly an issue for the citizens. We believe that makes it an issue for council. The citizens expect you guys to take action. I'm not sure what action we expect you to take. There are several options that you have at your disposal, but we expect to see some action. We expect to see it being considered in a reasonable amount of time. We will be taking that action ourselves. We have obtained legal counsel, and we are already pursuing the options we have should you guys choose not to act. The Warehouse Opposition Group is just over 600 people. We're about 625, I think, last time I checked, roughly. Not all of those members are current residents of Vandalia. But the ones that are residents of Vandalia typically represent multiple voters in those households. We have not been a politically motivated or active group. It is not my intent to lead that group that direction. However, that remains an option. Should council choose not to vote or take action to address the citizens' concerns on the warehouse, we'll be looking at those options as well. I've looked at the election results for all the members, realizing that the votes are either for you or not for you, and that every person that voted for you that doesn't vote for you and votes for somebody else is a 2-vote swing. 600 plus voters is probably enough to swing at least all but I believe one person's popularity. I don't want to have to do that. It's against my nature. It's against my will. But it's not my group. It's the citizens' group. I'm just a leader. And I'm not terribly effective at that. I'm not a very good speaker. But I believe the citizens, should you choose not to act, will take their own action. And I believe they will take their own action at the polls later. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to make a comment? All right. We'll move on to the city manager's report where we have some information items. Mr. Wendt?
Thank you very much, Your Honor. I would just direct your attention in your packets. I wouldn't anticipate a decision being made today on this. I want to inform you that I received a correspondence from Jean Maycheck, and in this capacity, she is representing the Visions Endowment Fund. That is through the Vandalia Butler Foundation. They generally make a non-specific request for funding. They've not approached the township or the cities before this. But I did receive this letter and I wanted to hand it off to you. They use this to make certain grants in the district to benefit the school district and the students there. And so if council thinks that this merits further discussion, we're able to have that either tonight or at a different time. I will move right along into information items. Of course, we'll hold our goal-setting retreat September 26th, 4 to 9 p.m. That'll be at Cassel Hills Golf Course. There's no motions or anything to take place at that. There's no legislation. It's naturally just our team building and our goal-setting workshop. One of the other items that's on here is Fire Prevention Month. We'll hold an open house. October, of course, is Fire Prevention Month, and that open house will be at fire headquarters off of Peters Pike, 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. on October 2nd. The final item after information items that I have are action items. And I would just request, if it's council's liking and to your pleasure, having two separate simple motions to appoint Ms. Rebecca Roderer to the Vandalia Arts Council and also Mr. Chris Royce to the Vandalia Arts Council Board as well.
All right, thank you. Can I have a motion for Ms. Rebecca Roderer?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Follick and a second by Councilman Blakesley to approve Ms. Roderer to the Vandalia Arts Council Board. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the motion
need a vote.
passes.
We'll need a roll call vote on that one. On these, we do need roll call votes.
My sheet
They're not
says
procedural.
acclamation. All right, call the roll.
Sure. Councilmember Ehlers.
Yes.
Councilmember Blakesley.
Yes.
Councilmember Follick.
Yes.
Councilmember Farce.
Yes.
Mayor Herbst.
Yes, and the motion carries 5-0. Can I have a motion regarding the Vandalia Arts Council applicant, Mr. Royce?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Blakesley and a second by Councilman Ehlers. And we will not vote by acclamation this time. We'll go ahead and call the roll. How about that, Mr. McDonald?
I like that. Councilmember Blakesley.
Yes.
Councilmember Follick.
Yes.
Councilmember Farce.
Yes.
Councilmember Ehlers.
Yes.
Mayor Herbst.
Yes, the motion passes 5-0. We have no old business, and that brings us to our first emergency ordinance, that being Emergency Ordinance 22-36. Mr. McDonald?
An ordinance authorizing a temporary advance and reimbursement between the general fund of the city for expenses relating to the CDBG playground equipment project, together with all related items, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Mr. Wendt?
Thank you, Your Honor. This emergency ordinance is the result of Director Steve Clark winning a $100,000 grant for playground equipment at Helke Park. The emergency ordinance authorizes a temporary advance and reimbursement between the general fund to the Community Development Block Grant Fund for partial payment of the expenses related to the Parks and Recreation Playground Equipment Project.
Thank you. And since this is an emergency ordinance, I'll open a public hearing. So if anyone would like to speak on this particular emergency ordinance, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record and your comment. Being none, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I
Your Honor,
move-
I'll move to approve ordinance 22-36 as an emergency.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Follick and a second by Councilwoman Farce to approve emergency ordinance 22-36. Are there any comments from council? Call the roll.
Councilmember Follick.
Yes.
Councilmember Farce.
Yes.
Councilmember Ehlers.
Yes.
Councilmember Blakesley.
Yes.
Mayor Herbst.
Yes, and the motion carries 5-0. Next, we have ordinance 22-39 as an emergency.
An ordinance authorizing a temporary advance and reimbursement between the general fund and the FEMA Special Revenue Fund of the city for expenses relating to the replacement of the self-containing breathing apparatus project, together with all related items, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Mr. Wendt?
Thank you very much, Your Honor. I, of course, have gotten myself out of sorts here.
We're
Give me
moving
one
fast
second.
tonight.
Well, I appreciate it. This emergency ordinance, of course, authorizes a temporary advance in reimbursement between the general fund to the FEMA Special Revenue Fund for partial payment of the expenses related to the replacement of self-contained breathing apparatus. The city has a very low cost share in accepting the FEMA grant. Chief Follick, Captain Milliken, especially went out and got a grant for, I think, $225,567, which is a pretty big deal for mandated purchases. So we celebrate that, and thank you very much, Chief, for doing that.
Since this is an emergency ordinance, I'll open a public hearing. So if anyone would like to speak on this ordinance, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record and your comment. Being none, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve ordinance 22-39 as an emergency.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Farce and a second by Councilman Blakesley to approve ordinance 22-39 as an emergency. Are there any comments? Call the roll.
Councilmember Fairst,
Yes.
Councilmember Ehlers,
Yes.
Councilmember Blakesley,
Yes.
Councilmember Follak,
Yes.
Mayor Herbst.
Yes, the motion carries 5-0. Next, we have ordinance 22-37 as an emergency. Mr. McDonald?
Now I'm out of sorts. An ordinance approving individual assessment amounts and directing the finance director or her designee to certify the amounts to the county auditor for collection and declaring an emergency.
We'll slow down the pace here a little bit for Mr. Wendt.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. This emergency ordinance assesses properties for delinquent accounts related to stormwater fees, trash collection, delinquent sewer and water, and also weed cutting.
Thank you. Since this is an ordinance as an emergency, I'll open a public hearing. So if anyone would like to comment, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record and your comment. Being none, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion that we approve ordinance 2237 as emergency.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Blakesley and a second by Councilman Follak to approve ordinance 22-37 as an emergency. Are there any comments? Call the roll.
Councilmember Ehlers,
Yes.
Councilmember Blakesley,
Yes.
Councilmember Follak,
Yes.
Councilmember Fairst,
Yes.
Mayor Herbst.
Yes, and the motion carries 5-0. That brings us to our resolutions, where we have two of them here this evening. The first one being Resolution 22-R-62. Mr. McDonald?
A resolution to waive the formal bidding process for the purchase of playground equipment and authorizing the purchase from Landscape Structures through the State of Ohio Procurement Contract Number 800-841 STS640.
Thank you. Mr. Wendt?
Thank you very much, Your Honor. The Parks and Recreation Department is requesting, and with my approval, to waive the formal bidding process for capital purchase of the playground equipment for both the Vandalia Sports Complex and Helke Park, and authorizing the purchase from the State Ohio Procurement Program with Landscape Structures of Delano, Minnesota, at a cost not to exceed $700,000. The city, I think very wisely, has put $225,000 of American Rescue Plan Act funds and also $150,000 into the capital budget this year through the last budget that we did for the sports complex. And then, of course, in Helke Park, $225,000 of American Rescue Plan Act funds. And then also, this is the $100,000 grant that Director Clark just received. I've got some general information that I included in the packet on the various ages. I'll suffice it to say that they're old and they need replaced. And we've got outside money to mostly do most of it.
Thank you. Can I have a motion?
I'll move to approve resolution 22-R-62 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Follak and a second by Councilman Ehlers to approve Resolution 22-R-62 as presented. Are there any comments? Call the roll.
Councilmember Blakesley,
Yes.
Councilmember Follak,
Yes.
Councilmember Fairst,
Yes.
Councilmember Ehlers,
Yes.
Mayor Herbst.
Yes, and the motion carries 5-0. Next, we have Resolution 22-R-67.
A resolution accepting the assistance to firefighters grant for replacing self-contained breathing apparatus.
Thank you. Mr. Wendt?
Thank you, Your Honor. The Division of Fire has been awarded a FEMA Assistance to Firefighters Grant, or AFG. To assist in replacing self-contained breathing apparatus, the award is $225,567, and the city's match is just 5%, $11,278.36. This is one of the largest grant awards that the Division of Fire has received. Chief Follick, of course, credits the success to Captain Milliken's hard work.
Thank you. Can I have a motion?
Make a motion that we approve Resolution 2267.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Blakesley and a second by Councilwoman Fairst to approve Resolution 22-R-67 as presented. Are there any comments from council? Call the roll.
Councilmember Follak?
Yes.
Councilmember Fairst?
Yes.
Councilmember Ehlers?
Yes.
Councilmember Blakesley?
Yes.
Mayor Herbst?
Yes, the motion carries 5-0. We have no ordinances in the first reading, and that brings us to an ordinance in a second reading, that being ordinance 22-35.
An ordinance amending Vandalia Codified Ordinances, Section 104211, 104406D, and 1045.28 regarding water, sewer, wastewater treatment, and storm water drainage rates.
Thank you. Mr. Wendt?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is the subject of several meetings, studies, and presentations. The ordinance approves the amendment of the Vandalia Codified Ordinance Sections 1042.11, 1044.06 Delta, and 1045.82 regarding water, sewer, wastewater treatment, and stormwater drainage rates. Adjusting these rates will ensure adequate funds are available for future necessary operating, maintenance, and capital projects.
Thank you. Can I have a motion?
I move that we delay the decision on 22-35 we'll give council further time to discuss and study.
Second.
Do we need a specific date?
We have to give a date.
Yeah, I was going to clarify that this was a motion to table it.
Right.
And that
So do we need to put a date on that?
we typically do, yes.
Okay.
I was just looking that up.
Say we do?
Can we discuss it at our retreat?
Yeah.
Can we be added to our retreat? and get it? Okay.
So table it to the first meeting, where are we at?
26th.
The first meeting in October.
Yeah.
That would be October 3rd, I believe.
Yeah.
Now, is this a point where we can have discussion? Has there been a second?
Yes, there was a,
Okay.
I have a
yes.
first and a second.
A first and second.
Can I just ask, now that we're in the regular meeting, since council is deciding to considering tabling this motion or this piece of legislation in its second reading, would you just provide staff with policy directives regarding the types of proposals that you think you would find acceptable?
Well, as I mentioned during the study session and briefly here when Mr. Grice was speaking, my main concern with this is the impact it's going to have on our residents that are on fixed incomes. And I think that's something that we need to look at. And also the fact that 39% of the residents are already paying the minimum water. They're not even using more water that they would typically be billed for. So I think it's worth looking at maybe holding that rate on those people because they're usually one or two person households. And I know there were several other items that came up, other council members mentioned. I don't know if anybody else wants to weigh in on what their concerns are, but those were my two main concerns. And maybe, I think you answered me that when it didn't sound like we could spread this out over more time, but something to consider.
For the sake of time, I mean, and looking at the schedule and calendar, what period of time does staff need to make this change for the 2023 budget?
It would be nice. It would be
Besides tonight.
It would, yeah, it would have been nice to have this worked out prior to our first budget hearing. Of course, that's what's going to affect capital staffing, the fund balance policies that we have and implement. And so, if it's possible to bring it back at the next meeting, that'd be great.
will us discussing it at next Monday's retreat give staff enough time to have something for the following Monday, though? That's my other question to that is, do we have to reintroduce the ordinance, or can we just make an amendment at that time in the second reading?
Make an amendment.
You can amend it, right?
I believe if we amend it substantially, it has to be re-advertised again, I think. So if we were to have it at the meeting on the 3rd, it wouldn't be able to pass until the next meeting. Because this would be a major, yeah, this would be a major change to it, I'm presuming.
Well, and my thought would be, as it's already been talked about, perhaps what levels of percentages to start out, small percentage and increase, keep getting larger instead of one large amount. And can it be stretched out, or how can it be stretched out any longer than 5 years? And maybe the answer is no, but just to be able to see that. And I guess that's where I'm looking at is, operational costs I know are going to go up, but I would just like to see what that looks like. I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah, I'll,
More definitive, I guess, in details.
I'll reiterate that we ran several scenarios. I'm happy to share those with you and read those into the record.
Is there any other direction for staff by council? All right, then I certainly recognize we're putting staff in a precarious position by not getting this out on the table quicker, but I think it's worthy.
I'm certainly, you certainly pay us to solve problems, and we're happy to do that, whether it's operationally or budgetarily. So we'll bring you those choices.
I know it kind of hit you late on this, but I feel that if we were just to vote on this tonight, this carte blanche, I think we may have regretted any thoughts that were there things that we missed or you missed, or, brainstorming some of the ideas, just so that we're sure. I think that's where I'm coming from.
Any other comments from council? Before Jerry corrects me. Just sit right there.
I just want to
Procedurally-
clarify, the motion is a motion to table until October 3rd.
That's
So
correct. but-
moved.
That's
No. Everybody can hold on for a second. This is an ordinance in its second reading, and I was remiss to have a public hearing. We need to have a public hearing on this. If it's
Well-
tabled, do we need to have a public hearing?
We would have to have yet another public reading after it's amended. So it would be.
Do I need to have a public hearing?
You do not have to, no.
Okay. All right, I have a motion by Councilman Ehlers and a second by Councilman Blakesley that we table ordinance 22-35 in its second reading to October 3rd. Any comments from council? Call the roll.
Councilmember Fairst,
Yes.
Councilmember Ehlers,
Yes.
Councilmember Blakesley,
Yes.
Councilmember Follak,
Yes.
and Mayor Herbst.
Yes, and the motion carries 5-0. That brings us to reports from boards and commissions. Council, you've received the meeting minutes of the Civil Service Commission on August 10th and the Civil Service Commission minutes on August 31st, and the BZA meeting minutes of August 24th.
Mayor,
You forgot the
think
reports, you forgot
we have two
some
variances that,
reports from boards and commission.
Where?
Your Honor, I apologize. These on the agenda are listed as
Well, that's what I had
D&E.
coming up next.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
My apologies for any confusion.
backwards on ours.
I follow the master agenda. And that brings us to a variance for curb openings at 769 Center Drive. Mr. Wendt.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. The applicant, Levin Porter Architects, has requested a variance to allow a second curb opening on the same street frontage as 769 Center Drive. At its meeting on August 24th, 2022, the Board of Zoning Appeals voted 5-0 to recommend approval of this request.
Thank you. Can I have a motion?
I move that we approve the variance for the curb opening at 769 Center Drive.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Forrest and a second by Councilman Blakesley to approve the variance for curb openings at 769 Center Drive. Are there any comments? Call the roll.
Sorry about that. Councilmember Ehlers?
Yes.
Councilmember Blakesley?
Yes.
Councilmember Follak?
Yes.
Councilmember Fairst?
Yes.
Mayor Herbst?
Yes, and the motion carries 5-0. Next, we have a variance for a fence at 9005 Dogleg Road. Mr. Wendt?
Thank you, Your Honor. The applicant, Mr. David Morse, has requested a variance to allow a 4-foot-tall, high-tensile woven wire fence on property located at 9005 Dogleg Road. Per code, metal and woven wire fence is permitted only in the agricultural zoning district. At its meeting on August 24th, 2022, the Board of Zoning Appeals voted 5-0 to recommend approval with 2 conditions.
Thank you. Can I have a motion?
Your Honor, I'll move to approve the variance for the fence at 9005 Dogleg Road with the 2 conditions of the BZA.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Follak and a second by Councilman Blakesley to approve the variance for the fence at 9005 Dogleg Road with the 2 conditions noted by the BZA. Are there any comments from council? Call the roll.
Councilmember Blakesley?
Yes.
Councilmember Follak?
Yes.
Councilmember Fairst?
Yes.
Councilmember Ehlers?
Yes.
Mayor Herbst?
Yes, the motion carries 5-0. And that brings us to the August bill listing in the amount of $5,481,993.19, and a list of all the August expenses over $50,000, and along with that, the August purchase card detail in the amount of $25,994.96. And that brings us to council comments. Mr. McDonald.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Mr. Wendt.
Your Honor, I'm very pleased to inform you that Chief Althouse has advised that the Police Division will receive a $13,000 grant for police officer wellness services. We're very excited about that. The other thing, too, is that Assistant City Manager Holloway and I have been attending the International City-County Management Association Conference, which is in Columbus this year. It goes all over the country. But I was really excited today to see Facility Manager Alicia McCracken and also Recreation Coordinator John Myers there today. They got free professional development training today in exchange for volunteering some hours this weekend in preparation for the conference. So that was pretty exciting, and I think they were pretty thrilled to see the city management side of it.
All right, thank you. Councilman Blakesley.
Start off with a motion to excuse Council Member Woods and Vice Mayor Lewis from all meetings tonight.
Can I have a second? I have a motion by Councilman Blakesley and a second by Councilwoman Forrest to excuse Councilwoman Woods and Vice Mayor Lewis from all of tonight's meetings. Do what? All in favor?
Aye.
Thought for sure he was going to make me call the roll. If I would have called the roll, he said you can vote by acclamation. I get it. I'm catching on. All right, next we have Councilman Follak.
He wasn't done.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just moving right along.
Excited to get going. Just want to thank staff for working so hard on all the grants that we have received. I'm just so proud of how we've been able to go after grants, look for them, get them. And I know what exorbitant amount of work is involved, having gone after grants myself. There's a lot of research and a lot of time spent in that. So I really appreciate that on that level as much as it is saving the city money and going for other alternate funding sources and stretching, as you would say, the taxpayer dollars. And we heard about 5 of those tonight, and there's many more coming. We've received many others. I just want to let everybody know how appreciative that is, and I know citizens have to appreciate that as well. You know, if we can offset many projects with grants, that's great. I think we've seen an increase of grants since you've been here. So keep it going. And also, speaking of Mr. Wendt, congrats to you for being named or credentialed by the International City County Management Association. So I saw that in the letter, and I know that's quite an achievement too. So thank you. That's it.
All right, Councilman Pollak.
Just a couple things real quick. One, just to echo
Go watch.
Councilman Blakesley's remarks about Mr. Wendt's credentialing. I think it's important to point out that there are only 36 individuals in the state of Ohio that are in the city-county management profession that have achieved that credential, and only 4 here in Montgomery County. So I think that's a pretty big accomplishment for our city manager and his candidacy for that credentialing. Just wanted to congratulate Councilman Blakesley and the rest of the Sister Cities organization for the Oktoberfest last weekend. I was out there on Saturday, and it was an outstanding event. The weather cooperated, and it was good to see people back, although it was back last year too. But I slung cabbage rolls for 3 hours, and
Do you have
that was
nightmares?
quite a feat because I don't like sauerkraut. So there's that. And then lastly, and I know this is, I know staff I think is working on this, but early voting starts October 12th. And we do have 2 ballot issues on the ballot. They were assigned numbers, but I forgot to write those down. But so I know information will be coming out about the aggregation for electric and gas. So just to let citizens know that that is a step that we've taken. And there'll be more information coming out from the city about ways to possibly aggregate gas and utility and electric rates in the future. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Councilwoman Forrest.
Let's talk about aggravate. But no, thanks to Councilman Blakesley and Sister Cities, that was a great event to have out there, and I slung bratwursts, and I don't like brats at all.
Well,
So
thank you.
it's kind of good, though, you don't eat it all, I think,
Yeah.
when you're out there. But really, I think if you've been in our meetings or been paying attention lately, you see how much effort's gone into information that's given to staff. And we have 3 meetings coming up, a retreat next week, and then 2 budget meetings. And I know staff is working tremendously hard to get the information to us so that we can make the best decision. So thank you. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, Councilman Ehlers.
I'm fine, thank you.
All right. One thing I was going to mention is also thanking everyone that participated in the Oktoberfest. I think, as everyone's aware now, that slinging cabbage rolls and brats is not a whole lot of fun. I actually worked the front gates for 2 solid days till 11 o'clock at night, so we're always looking for more volunteers.
Your Honor, I only saw you walking back and forth with empty beer
Oh, yeah.
beer canisters. That's
I
all I
saw
saw
that
you do.
too.
He was given directions.
I made food runs, I did whatever I was called upon to do. So we are in need of volunteers, and not just the front gate, but in a lot of different positions at the Oktoberfest. So I would encourage anyone that wants to get involved next year to go ahead and do that. And when do those meetings start?
They're on the 3rd Wednesday.
Third Wednesday, and that starts
It's
when?
planning, October
October of this year.
of this year.
All right,
We
already
start
planning for
planning a
next
year
year.
ahead.
So it's
Yeah.
a great event. All right, and that's all I have. So this meeting is adjourned.